Hello, and welcome back to Old Testament Storytime with Amanda. And we are here to continue Abraham's story. So at this point in the story, Abram basically has everything he could ever want, right? Like, he has gold, silver, land, animals, servants, and a whole army of kick-butt dudes. But you may have noticed that there's sort of like an ongoing, unspoken question. Abram has everything he could ever want except kids. And you also, the Lord has promised him, repeatedly, that he will have countless posterity. But you might also remember the rub, which is that Sarai, his wife, is barren, so she can't have kids. So anyway, in Genesis 15, the Lord appears to Abram in a vision and reminds him that he will protect and reward Abram. But Abram is like, okay, so you said my reward would be lots of kids, and you haven't given me any kids yet. Which, valid. The Lord's promises probably don't really make sense to him much at this point. But the Lord reconfirms his promises, telling Abram that his seed will number as great as the stars. And Abram believes the Lord, which is honestly a crazy amount of faith. Abram had so much faith. So Sarai also wants kids, but obviously she still can't have any. So she has this handmaid named Hagar, who's from Egypt, and she gives Hagar to Abram as a wife. And now this sounds really strange and messed up to us, and I can't give any arguments about the actual morality, but in their culture and time, this was actually a really normal and even expected solution to this problem. So Abram goes in to be with Hagar, and she conceives a child. And when she figures out that she's pregnant, she despises Sarai, which again, honestly, kind of valid. Low-key, I feel like I'd be angry about that too. But anyway, Sarai is mad that Hagar's mad at her, and she's looking for someone to blame, so she gets angry with Abraham, who just kind of throws up his hands and says, I don't know, not my fault, do what you want. So Sarai, it says, deals hardly with Hagar. We don't know exactly what that means, but Hagar runs away and ends up near a fountain of water in the wilderness, just kind of distraught. And so while Hagar is sitting by the fountain, an angel appears to her and tells her to go back and submit herself to Sarai. Now, if you are in an abusive situation ever, this is not advice for you. You don't have to go back. And in this situation, it seems kind of hard and uncaring. But he also promises her that her seed will be multiplied so much that it won't be able to be numbered. And he also tells her to name her son Ishmael, which translates to God hears. So this was a sign to her of God's love and care for her experience. He heard her cry. Even though her situation was hard, he knew that she was there. And so the angel also tells her that her son will be freedom-loving, which probably means that he'll be a nomad. And Hagar recognizes that God has seen her and returns to Abram and Sarai. Not too long later, she gives birth to their son Ishmael when Abram is 86 years old. So it looks like Abram's problems are solved, right? He finally has a child, the one thing he wanted, and that God has always promised him. But God still has something even better in store for him. About 13 years later, when Abram is 99, the Lord appears to him and makes a covenant with him. So if you've heard of the Abrahamic covenant, this is the big one. This is the one you've been waiting for. We're finally there. The whole covenant starts at the beginning of Genesis 17, and it starts with God commanding Abraham to be perfect. Abram still. He commands that Abram be perfect and promises that he will be the father of many nations, and this is where he changes his name to Abraham, because Abraham means father of many nations. The Lord promises to Abraham, that many kings will come from his posterity, and he also promises the land of Canaan as an everlasting possession for them. The Lord also announces that this covenant will be not only for Abraham, but also for all of his children. So this is a covenant that is passed down through Abraham's bloodline. Now, this covenant is so important that it needs a token to signify it's being agreed to. You can't just say you're going to do it. You got to show you're going to do it. So the Lord institutes circumcision as a token of the covenant. And I hope you know what circumcision is. If you don't, I'm not going to describe it to you. You can Google it if you want, but depending on the virginity of your eyes, it may be safer to just look it up in the Guide to the Scriptures. Anyway, the Lord commands Abraham that every male member of his household should be circumcised. So that's all of his family members and also all of his servants, everybody. And so Abraham complies with that. Anyway, finally, the Lord gives Abraham one more huge blessing. He also changes Sarai's name to Sarah, which means princess, and says that she will be blessed by God to have a son. When Abraham hears this, he laughs out of some mix of incredulity and joy, because Sarah is way old. She's like 70 years old at this point, and of course that seems impossible. But God reaffirms that she will have a son within the next year, and her son will be the one that the covenants are passed down through. Both Ishmael and her son, who will be named Isaac, will be blessed with lots of descendants. So Abraham goes home, circumcises his whole house, and believes in the promises of God. It's pretty incredible. He has so much faith. And so one way that we see Christ in this is through the Abrahamic covenant. Because the Abrahamic covenant is like super important. It's the basis of multiple world religions: Judaism, Christianity, Islam. And it's very important, like maybe even more especially to our doctrine in the Church of Jesus Christ. We believe that the Abrahamic covenant applies not only to direct descendants of Abraham, but also to anyone who joins the family of Abraham through baptism. We believe that covenants are a major evidence of God's love for his children and his desire for a deep, intimate, binding relationship with us. Christ offered Abraham this opportunity to come closer to him, to make this binding, deeper relationship with him, and he makes us all that same offer. He holds out his hand in love to each and every one of us. So yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.